All right, y'all. Welcome to my top five featherweights of all time. Now, you're going to see in this video what I deem to be the best featherweights of all time, obviously. The criteria for it is going to be the guys had to have spent a good part of their career at the division. That's going to be the criteria for the series, essentially moving forward. So, although many guys have dominated at different weight classes, this is going to be more about guys who dominated at the weight class for an extended period of time, where they won titles and had a decent era and a decent reign. Outside of that, they won't be in the top five for the division specifically unless I feel like they met that criteria. So, even with that moving forward, I'm not going to have a lot of honorable mentions like I normally do with my videos. So, we're just going to kind of get right to it. And I appreciate everybody tuning in. So, don't forget to like and subscribe. And all right, man, let's get to it. All right, y'all. My first honorable mention, actually, my only honorable mention is going to be Alexis Arguello. The guy won 3 world titles at that weight class and held them for a good amount of time, from about 74 to 82, which is a good run, of to have those titles. He had everything from the featherweight to the WBC super featherweight title as well. Definitely was one of the best fighters of all time when you think about everything he brought to the table. I thought Alexis was one of the more skilled fighters at that weight class, had a good blend of speed and power. And if not for the top 5 guys I had, he would definitely be on the list, but I wanted to mention him. So let's get into it. My first number 5. Now, old Abe was one tough son of a bitch, I gotta tell you. The guy fought back in the era when they was fighting 20 rounds and stuff like that. So for him to hold that title from 1906 to 1912 is crazy. When you really consider that, thinking about how they was fighting back then. And by the way, he defended that title 22 times and never lost the belt. So you got to give him a lot of credit. And he fought a lot of Hall of Famers, including Battling Nelson, Johnny Kilbane, people like that. And also, Abe Patel was kind of caught in some duplicitous stuff. They said he played a role in the I think it was 1908 or 1909, whatever it was, with the Black Sox. He got jammed up with that. He was good friends with Arnold Rothstein. But other than that, I thought he was just one hell of a fighter, you know what I mean? In spite of everything going on. Thought the guy put up a good record for himself. So, and he fought all of those fights at featherweight. That's another thing. So that's definitely why he's on my list, because he never fought at another weight class. You know what I mean? You're talking about over 150 fights. So shouts to Abe, man, for real. Now, my number 4, none other than Salvador Sanchez. To me, one of the best fighters of all time. And had he not died so young, he probably would be number 1 on this list. Salvador turned pro at 16. He started at bantamweight and did well there as well. Had his only loss down there to Antonio Becerra, who was too experienced for Salvador. But he only lost to him on a split decision anyway. So he kept on fighting, obviously, and eventually moved up to featherweight. And that's when he really started beating people down, man. And including people like Felix Trinidad Sr., who was a very good fighter at the time and a former featherweight champion. And that got him a title shot with Danny Lopez. And I got to tell you, man, he really did his thing against Danny. Put the brakes on him, shut him down, won his belt, and never really looked back. And if you don't know, Salvador Sanchez was only about 21 years old when he was doing all of this. He finished with a record of 44 wins and only 1 loss. But of that 1 loss, I told you, it was very young and very early in his career. He had some tough fights, but to me, the toughest was the guy you see him moving with now, which is Azuma Nelson. Azuma was a serious competitor for that featherweight and lightweight. He moved around a little bit, but I would have had him on this list, obviously. But anyway, Salvador Sanchez, again, one of the best featherweights of all time, had one of the most famed fights against Wilfredo Gomez, who was pretty much like Godzilla around that time. And they called him Bazooka, by the way, because he was knocking everybody out, blowing them away. And Salvador really put the smackdown on him. That's all I'm going to say, because I got a lot of respect for Wilfredo Gomez, but it was not easy and it was not pretty. So after that, Salvador went on, had a bunch of fights, beat some guys, and like I was telling you about that Azuma Nelson fight, that happened in Madison Square Garden. And ironically, man, only 3 weeks after that is when Salvador died. They say he crashed his Porsche, which means he was probably driving too fast, you know what I mean? And it's unfortunate because, like I said, he was definitely one of the greatest fighters to me of all time, and he was on his way to securing that. He was going to have some big fights, probably a rematch with Gomez, potentially a fight with Alexis Arguello, Mario Miranda, and just moving on up. He got inducted to the International Boxing Hall of Fame in 1991, by the way. But yeah, shouts to Salvador Sanchez, my number 4 featherweight. All right, y'all. My number 3 featherweight all time, none other than Willie Pep. Now, I know this raises some eyebrows because most people consider Willie Pep to be the best featherweight, the number 1 featherweight of all time. Everybody except me. I think Willie Pep is by far the best boxing featherweight of all time. I respect everything that he did. The guy had over 1,950 rounds, over 240 fights in a 26-year career. You know what I mean? He held the featherweight championship twice between the years of 1942 and 1950. Now, like I said, of all the guys on the list, I think Willie Pep is the best boxer for sure. And there's no getting around that. But he fought a guy named Stanley Sadler about 4 times and just could never get the job done. And to me, that played a big role in his ranking on this list. But like I said, outside of that, he was an absolute dog, man. Did everything that you can do in the sport and dominated it at the same division. So that's really one of the reasons why people, I think, give him that number 1 featherweight, because he stayed there and did so much there. But, you know, boxing is a style thing and everything counts, though. So to me, Willie Pep, number 1 boxing featherweight, top 3 boxer of all time, far as footwork, movement, know-how, but number 3 on my featherweight list, y'all. And I know y'all got some pushback. I love to hear about it, but that's where I got him at. All right, y'all. My number 2 all-time featherweight. That's right, Stanley Sadler, 2-time featherweight world champion. Fought over 12 years in his career and had over 104 knockouts. Can you believe that? And only got stopped once himself. And that was in his second fight, by the way. Ring Magazine considered him number 5 all-time 100 greatest punches, just to let you know how Stanley Sadler was getting down. The guy had 145 wins, as you can see, only 16 losses, and like I said, 104 knockouts. Now, the thing that put me in the mindset that he was ahead of Willie Pep, because I know a lot of y'all got the pushback, is obviously the head-to-head. Now, we know Stanley Sadler is known to be a dirty fighter, but I got to tell you, he beat the man 3 out of the 4 times easy, I thought. You know what I mean? Especially when you look at the scorecard and you see what happened. Just a phenomenal record. And to be able to do that against Willie Pep, like I said, is no easy feat, considering, like I told you, Willie Pep is probably top 3 boxer and ring generalship all time. So that's my number 2, y'all. Stanley Sadler, number 2 featherweight of all time. All right, y'all. My number 1. That's right. Hammering Henry Armstrong. Perhaps the greatest fighter of all time. A lot of people think, not in my opinion, but definitely he is the only fighter to ever hold 3 world titles in 3 different divisions at the same time. As a lot of y'all know, fought over 183 times, had 151 wins, 100 knockouts, and 22 losses, only 10 draws. Now, interesting thing about Hank, he fought his first fight early in his career, right? He was knocked out in 3 rounds by a guy named Al Levino. Then, this was in 1931. He started fighting, got himself going in 1932, all the way up until, let's say, about 1936. He really started to come on strong and get himself going. He was fighting under the name Melody Jackson at the time. Now, 1937 alone, Henry Armstrong went 27-0 with 26 knockouts. He beat almost everybody that was somebody during that time, including former world champion Benny Bass and Frankie Click. Beat them both, got himself a title shot at 126 against Petey Saran in Madison Square Garden, and knocked him out in 6 rounds. So, yeah, Henry Hank was definitely on another level. As the featherweight world champion, he challenged Barney Ross, beat him, right? Got the World Welterweight Championship, then came back and beat Lou Ambrose for the lightweight title. Now, why I got him number one on my list is because he had 80 fights at featherweight. And I think those 80 fights more than qualify a person to have been at that weight class and fought and reigned. And like I said, he beat everybody while he was there. Now, another reason I got him number one is because I don't think that any of the featherweights on this list could have beat Henry Armstrong. That's just what I think. Just like I don't think Willie Pep, clearly he didn't beat Stanley Sadler, but I don't think he would have anyway. And I definitely don't think none of them would have beat Henry Armstrong. So yeah, my number one featherweight of all time, y'all. Peace.